Simon Belmont, Kid Icarus, Mega Man?
And you must be Captain N.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another cartoon commentary. Toon Guys Talking. Joining me today is Jay Bartlett. Jay, how you doing?
Mike, it is a pleasure. And you know what? I haven't seen this show, man, since it's got to be early 90s, late 80s. It's since I was a kid.
Came out in 89, which was surprising. I thought it was a 90s show, but technically an 80s show. And I thought you'd be a great guy to have on this because you're the Nintendo guy.
I am, yes. Yeah, I have a documentary out there called Nintendo Quest, and I was just gonna say this brings me back to a simpler time when shows like this you got so excited for because you didn't have the internet, right? So you didn't have any gaming news. So every little tidbit of video game goodness you could get, even a television show, was very exciting, and this featured a lot of the great characters of the time.
So I do want to recommend people check out, first of all, Nintendo Quest. And it's on Amazon, I think, worldwide now.
It's on Amazon Prime, yeah.
Amazon Prime. And then I really want to recommend folks check out Action Figure Adventure with you and your buddy Rob. That is just an awesome show. Finished season 1 just recently. And that is not just a show about hunting down the toys, the figures, the play sets that you wanted to get. That's a show that really hits the heart. I think you had an awesome mission in that show, raising money for the Children's Hospital. And you got some awesome people on there. So awesome to see Carson on there from 3D Joe's and a couple of the other usual suspects. But I really, really enjoyed that show, and I'm looking forward to season 2.
I really appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you. Thank you.
So we're going to be watching Captain N the Game Master, since you are also a game master. And this one, like I said, is from September of 1989. And I remember when that first came out, and I was so excited to see some of my favorite Nintendo characters on here. And some of those characters, when I saw them animated, it was kind of like that Filmation Ghostbusters that I just did with Eric. It was like, what the hell is this?
It's almost like they take, typical Hollywood, right? They take the source material and just throw it out. They get like one bad picture of Mega Man. It's like, okay, well, I guess we'll make him like this. Like the artwork from Mega Man 2, he's holding a gun. It's like Mega Man doesn't have a gun or a blaster, right?
And Simon. But hunt down Captain N, the Game Master, Episode 1, Kevin in Videoland, wherever you can find it. Pause it at the very beginning. Here's your countdown. 3, 2, 1, play. And on play, you'll press play. Ready? 3, 2, 1, play. Oh, I love the 8-bit sound effects.
It's like a choose your own adventure screen. Kid Icarus, yeah. Oh man, that was a tough game. You remember Kid Icarus? Oh my god.
Yeah, I didn't get very far. Now, I loved Simon on the show, even though he was a complete departure from Simon on Castlevania. It just
I agree.
Worked.
You know what I'd like to know is how Capcom, Konami, and Nintendo they kind of all work together. Yeah, because it's not just Nintendo characters here. You got a lot of third-party stuff.
That's a good point. This isn't just a Nintendo show. This is a multi-brand, multi-company team up collaboration. Probably wouldn't happen today unless it was, what's the game where they always they got RoboCop in it and Snake Eyes doing a playable character.
Oh, is it one of those fan-made fighting games, that kind of thing?
Yeah, but like an official one. Like I remember just hearing recently you can play RoboCop on. I'm
it's
so out of the
Mortal Kombat, I think. Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
King Hippo. No one. Maybe that was how they got around it. Okay, our character can be in your show, but he can't look anything like the character in the game. I remember King Hippo being blue.
And I was just gonna say to you, where did they come up with the choices for the villains? Like, why King Hippo out of everybody? Why not Super Macho Man? He was a lot cooler.
Glass Joe.
Glass Joe. He would have been funny, but King Hippo. And yeah, why is he blue? Why is he blue? I can't answer that. Who can? Anyone
Mother Brain.
with a face and lipstick?
This is I remember it fondly. I watched a lot of it back then, but I just have a feeling that if this were to be released today, it would get the Thundercats roar treatment. People would just say source material, and justifiably so in this case.
How big of a gamer were you in the 80s? Were you a
Oh,
Nintendo
huge.
kid, a Sega kid?
Huge.
Yeah. All the good stuff.
NES all the way, and then Genesis after that. And a few years after that, we were lucky enough to get a Super Nintendo also, because back then it was either or. You couldn't have a Master System and an NES. You had to have
Yeah.
one or the other. You couldn't have a Genesis and a Super Nintendo. But we were very lucky. A couple of years, it was on the tail end of Super Nintendo that we were able to get one when they went down in price a bit. So that's the Gauntlet, the old Power Glove, right?
That is too, and something interesting to note on Captain N as well. He has the NES controller belt buckle that became the big fashion statement about 10 years ago. I don't know if you remember that. Everyone had the NES controller belt buckles, and it stemmed from this show. There was a brief period of time too when Nintendo actually wanted Captain N to be their mascot, but I think Mario was like, "Nah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick with Mario."
Good call there. I don't have one of those controller buckles, but every time I see one, I just think that is the coolest thing. There's some great CGI right there.
Yeah,
Little money
absolutely.
for nothing style CGI.
This is
Good
very
dog,
similar to the remember the Super Mario Brothers Super Show with Captain Lou? Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
It was like kind of like almost like a variety show, and then they would have the Mario cartoons all week except Friday. Then we got a Zelda one. It's very
Oh, yeah.
similar to that.
Wow, they're real.
Looks like the ultimate warp brought us the ultimate wimp.
Who's that blonde guy? Who's that? I can't
Simon
figure it out.
Belmont.
You're kidding? Wow,
No,
I don't
serious.
remember him looking like that. Wow.
Yeah, it's actually Simon.
Jeez.
Yeah. They took liberties.
Warp Zone 4 and Super Mario Brothers?
Something like that.
Well, we've got the new Netflix Castlevania. That's kind of set things right in terms of animated Castlevania.
Thank
with
goodness. Yeah.
Trevor Belmont in that. And that'll definitely be one we need to do down the road, the Netflix Castlevania.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of Super Smash Brothers, which is a franchise that's been going for just decades now, where all the Nintendo characters fight each other. And I always thought it would have been cool if they made Captain N as a playable character.
Yeah. Or even some of these versions, like this Simon or that Mega Man.
Yeah.
Some nice animation here. This is a Deke show,
Princess? I'll say Videoland.
and it's actually really nice. A couple years after Deke was doing Real Ghostbusters, but still nice, smooth animation. They haven't really been cutting corners here.
Your cuteness. Wait.
Your cuteness.
Now, what's the availability for this? Do you know? Like, it did come out on DVD, I assume, or VHS at the time.
I like to just say it's around.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
But no, I don't
just-
think it's easy to find. I don't think it's streaming on Nintendo's YouTube channel or anything like that. It's
yeah,
obscure.
I was gonna say, to your point about the different versions being in Smash Brothers of these characters, I wonder if it's like, the Star Wars Holiday Special where it's kind of buried, and Nintendo
Maybe.
is like, yeah, that happened, but we don't want to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Anything you desire, my
And who's he?
I don't know.
The Eggplant Wizard? I don't know. Someone in the comments hit us up and let us know who the Eggplant Wizard, what game he's from.
I feel like I should know.
He might be an original character. Oh, vegetables pop out of him when you throw them around. Now, okay, so it's one of the fun things to do is watch this and go, how would people react today, or how did we react back then in a way different than would be today. I don't think anyone was watching the show and going, this ruined my childhood. I can never play Metroid again because they've ruined Mother Brain. Like it was its own
No.
separate entity, right? This is this show, and it's like a different continuity.
Yeah, and it was for kids, and back then at least the NES was marketed as a toy, so it was for kids. So I don't think there was a lot of adults necessarily watching this anyway. I just thought I remember the time Kid Icarus really liking that game, but it was just too difficult for me, and being able to see him animated and have a voice and stuff like that was so cool.
Yeah. Simon's got his whip.
There it is.
They kept one
He's-
thing.
He looks like a
Besides-
pilot.
Yeah.
I didn't even know who that was.
He's an adventurer, but Simon's like a medieval type of.
Maybe she can get us out.
Apparently not anymore.
Yeah. They got the color of Mega Man wrong. I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out why that is. If there was an actual legal necessity, or if it was a creative choice. Like the reason the real Ghostbusters look the way they do is they have to look different than the movie versions because they don't have the likeness rights.
Simon Belmont.
Interesting.
So
That I didn't
I don't
know. Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah, the original render of Venkman on Real Ghostbusters was a little too close to Bill Murray, and they said no, we can't do that, and that's why they ended up with a thinner, more kind of full head of hair Venkman on the show.
I still get blown away when I think that, I think of Ernie Hudson, who tried out for the Winston role in the cartoon and he didn't get it.
Yeah,
That's just that blows me away. Like
Well,
he is literally that character.
and that has something to do with, again, they didn't want to blur the lines and say we're going to get sued for having a character that seems too much like Winston in the movie, especially if it's played by the guy who was Winston in the movie. So they were trying to not get in trouble legally. It wasn't because he didn't do a good
Right.
enough job. But
Th-
I think
there's- yeah.
Arsenio would have done a good job in the movie too. I mean, they're kind of interchangeable. Ernie Hudson,
Yeah.
Arsenio Hall, you could have swapped them on the cartoon and movie, and it would have been just as good.
Something funny.
There's the Zapper, which is Captain
Yeah.
N's main weapon.
The blaster. This would be such a cool. We just had Halloween. Cool Halloween costume. Not that hard to do, but if you had an old classic Zapper and a kind of high school jacket, stick an N on it.
You could order, yeah, that's the letter, what's it called? Letterman jacket. I never had one
Yeah.
of those, but and the belt buckle that you can get at any. We have a store here in Canada called Spencer's, and it's like that kind of gag gift. I'm sure you could find an NES belt buckle there,
I love
or
that
Hot
controller.
Topic. Hot Topic would be good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you called the Nintendo the ultimate toy because it was a toy, and I include it with the greatest toys of the '80s, and that goes for the controller too. I get such warm fuzzy feelings whenever I see an old NES controller, and I've actually got a couple of them USB controllers, exactly like
cool.
the old NES controller. Yeah,
With the video game industry crashing, yeah, they had to market it in the US as a toy. That's why they put Rob the Robot with it. Otherwise, no parents in their right mind wanted to buy their kids video games after the 2600 essentially tanked, right? Crushed the industry
Yeah.
for a while.
and I had the 7800,
Oh,
and that
nice.
thing was supposed to be amazing, but it didn't last long.
Simon, the princess has been kidnapped. If we don't find her, I may never be able to get back home.
Now the princess, did we miss? Is that someone from a
She
game, or she new?
Might be the Mario princess. Although they would have called her
Wow.
Princess Peach. They might have just, in order to not deal with the rights issues, just say she's a princess, and you can, because there were princesses in a lot of those games. I think Zelda had a princess in it too, did.
Oh, whoa.
Well, yeah, Zelda herself, I believe, was. I don't know. The Zelda continuity is, if you want to like twist your mind into a pretzel, try and understand the order of the games and why the characters do what they do. It's almost impossible.
Yeah. So
Oh, there's the belt buckle. Yeah.
the main reason I wanted to do this one with you was because I figured I'd be sitting here going, "What the hell is going on?" And I thought, let's get the Nintendo expert because you've got every NES game ever made, which is what
Hey.
Nintendo Quest is all about, right?
Yeah. Well, let me just say, I was the one brave enough to take on the challenge. I am no expert by any means.
Well, yeah. So
I'm just crazy enough
I
to
didn't
do
realize you'd be sitting right next to me, going, What the hell is going on? What is this?
This is the warp to Metroid.
This was such a special time. There was great shows out, like you remember Video Power with Johnny Arcade. Do you remember that one? Oh,
No,
I
don't.
loved that show. So he kind of looked like Jordan Knight from New Kids on the Block. He would skateboard into the studio and he would have like 6 or 7 TVs and he would turn a big switch on and he had every console. And then they would play a cartoon, like he would talk about, hot tips on Ninja Gaiden. And then they would play a cartoon similar to this.
I think
But
I'm vaguely
I
remembering
loved those
this now.
shows.
Yeah, because there was no
There was-
YouTube or
yeah.
anything like that. All we had was
Nope.
Nintendo Power if you were lucky enough to get it.
And so he would do tips, like how to get
Yeah.
bonus men in Ninja Gaiden. And you tune in to learn this stuff. Other than magazines, that was it.
Talk about being ahead of your time. That guy.
It was a great show. And there's also Game Pro with JD Roth.
That one I
who used
remember.
he used to
Yeah.
host Funhouse. Yeah, that was a good one
I
too.
remember that one now. Yeah, anyone who played video games for an audience was way ahead of their time. That's a whole industry now.
Congoland, but that's the home of.
Can you
It's kind
imagine
of
when
like
we
a
were
performance
kids?
art.
Yeah, exactly. When we were kids, staying up all night trying to beat Super Mario Brothers, and our parents would come down and say, "You can't play video games for the rest of your life. You can't do this for a living." Imagine that.
I'm building my
Now you
brand,
can.
Mom. Donkey Kong. Yeah, it's pretty zany.
I'm thinking more. Well, there's a Mario noise there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking how much I want this to be a game now, because Captain N would be such a cool character with his dog sidekick too.
Yeah, I'd love
So
to
I
learn
didn't
more
wanna-
about this. Like if it's in purgatory or if it's like, something is in the works.
I didn't want to cheat, Mike, so I did a little bit of a Wikipedia lookup, but I didn't look up plots or characters or anything. So maybe I
Okay.
should have done that.
Well, I don't think there's much to the plot. It seems to be steal the princess, get her back.
Yeah.
That wasn't so bad.
It should be pretty awesome seeing the crossover stuff, like Simon fighting Donkey Kong, but it's not exactly how not that I pictured it, but if I had pictured it, it's not really playing out the way I would have imagined.
Donkey Kong has a bath towel and a shower cap.
What is happening here?
I
It's
don't know.
you know what this is? It's like Wreck-It Ralph.
Kinda, yeah. Yeah, it's very similar.
It's Wreck-It
And-
Ralph before its time.
And Donkey Kong captured the one character that has wings. Why am I trying to understand this?
We've got to warp out of here before Donkey Kong gives us the big game over.
Mike, why
Yeah,
does
the
he have a shower
towel-
cap?
Shower
Why?
cap in the towel. He just got out of the shower. Oh, that's a Mario
We're too late.
Venus
The door's
flytrap?
closed up.
And that beast is
Yeah, the piranha plants. I wonder if they thought the naked ape would honestly be offensive. It's got to be something to do with that.
Well, but he doesn't have that stuff on in later episodes, I don't think.
Okay. I do remember this cartoon had like a featured villain every week. I remember that.
Mm.
Videoland will soon be.
I'm not remembering if Samus from Metroid was in this. I do remember thinking like, oh, Mother Brain's in this, but where's Samus? Where's that cool character from Metroid?
Yeah.
So they kind of picked and choosed.
This is crazy. We're headed straight into a double dead end.
Mega Man doesn't seem to be using all of his different weapons, which is his whole gimmick. Kind of reminds me of the cover, which I think you talked about in Nintendo Quest, about the cover of Mega Man is nothing like the game because they didn't give the artist the proper information.
It's like any of these things. Sometimes I don't know what these
I'd sooner trust a vampire
corporate head
than a
honchos are
human.
thinking, right? They just I'm not going to get into all that, but yeah.
To the edge of the volcano.
Are you
This is where that Anakin and Obi-Wan duel should have been.
Oh, absolutely. Would have been perfect.
I think that's everybody imagined that when they heard about that, whether it was in an old magazine or maybe it was in one of the novelizations, fighting on the edge of a volcano.
Quick, get on the boulders. The pause.
I remember George always said that their fight was on a lava lava planet. We were lucky enough to see it. Is Donkey Kong getting bigger,
Yeah,
or he's just like
he ate a
getting bigger
mushroom.
here?
Oh no, that's cool. He latched a ride with a whip onto the meteor.
It's like very, very He-Man, where it's like they can't use their weapons to attack, right? Because that's too
Oh.
violent for the show. So
Yeah, 89 would have been in full swing.
yeah. Did you notice that? I just recently went through Masters of the Universe, the whole series, and yeah, there's not one sword clash in the entire show. Not one.
He'll hit objects with it,
Yeah.
but he'll never
Rescue the princess.
Speaking of her highness,
actually hit another person. And the punches too, I've noticed now. Once someone tells it to you, you can't not notice it. The punches, whenever he punches someone, he's actually punching the camera. He doesn't actually punch another person. You don't see it.
All right.
Like
yeah.
there's no actual Now that I've told you, you won't be able to unsee it. But yeah,
I
his
know.
fist never actually hits another person. It just hits the lens, and then you see the body flying.
Her loving Simon Belmont.
Or he'll take his sword out to cut down a tree to hit Skeletor instead of just using his
Yeah.
sword. I mean, I get he's
Yeah.
not going to cut him down, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit of a sword fight between the two.
Mega Man, give me a hand.
Yeah.
That looks like an opening.
Yeah, Mega Man really needs to use anything here. This would have
Arm
been
blaster,
Mega Man
jet feet.
1. Yeah. So
Yeah.
he should have some stuff.
I thought you didn't want to have anything to do with Videoland.
This guy was the coolest though, and with all these zany characters and their zany designs, I remember thinking Captain N was just the coolest with his
As to you,
Don't worry about
his
it,
letter
princess.
jacket and his laser, which I never had.
we're locked in.
He kind of reminds me of Marty McFly a little bit, the way he looks.
Yeah.
This is what the ultimate
Yeah,
control
exactly.
has sent to defeat me, huh?
It's all about that belt buckle.
When you try to survive the corridors of Metroid.
And I believe Metroid is the planet they're on.
Hmm.
I believe, which is also strange.
That would make sense. Yeah, those are from Metroid.
I'm gonna have to watch
Cool.
more now. I really want to know if Samus is in this, because that would have been fantastic.
I don't think she is. Spoiler, it's a girl. Do you remember that when
Yeah,
the helmet came off? What a shock that was.
I think if I remember correctly, that was a special ending, or maybe it was just the regular ending. But I never did finish it. But I remember seeing it in magazines, and it was like, wow,
Yeah.
Samus is a kick-ass woman. Like, that's just awesome.
Yeah.
Here we
I
go. We
like
got
that
some
there's scenes
platforming
like-
action. This is
Yeah,
great.
this is more game-like. I mean, if you're going to do a show about video games, then have some game-style challenges to overcome.
Yeah.
We did it. We made it through.
Mother Brain!
No
Uh-oh.
problem.
It's King Hippo.
Huh?
He's out?
Oh, I'm out of power.
Oh, he's out of power. That's awesome.
Just get Mega Man. Where's Mega Man?
We can defeat you as a team.
Oh.
Someone's got to punch King Hippo in the belly.
Yeah. Here we go. Love the smile.
What you gonna do now, dude? I'm not going to do anything, but my whip
Dude.
is going to whoop you.
Oh, the whip it's alive.
That's definitely new.
Yep. The veggies. Icarus.
Oh, he's cool looking, man.
Nice. He's the Hawkeye of the team. It's kind of
Yeah.
like the Avengers.
A little bit. That's all it took to beat Mother Brain for this week.
Just flip a lever.
The Palace of Power.
The legend may have been right about you after all, Captain N.
Yeah, well, I was just lucky, I guess.
Personally, I wasn't lucky at all. No, it was.
I'm interested to see how this finishes off. If he's stuck here or if he can just go and come back as he pleases.
We're indebted to you. And to the rest of you as well.
I don't remember. Yeah.
You too, you. You may have helped me.
Oh,
with
the dog's
war,
name is
but the
Duke.
war is far from over. You will stay and help defend Videoland, won't you?
Sorry, Your Highness, but I've got to get back
Oh.
to my world.
Oh, he's got
There you
homework.
go. And you know, parents and stuff that are probably wondering where he is.
Yeah, that keeps it light. You know, as soon as someone is stuck somewhere, there's like a melancholy that looms over the whole show.
Yeah,
Playing that foolish game. You have homework to do.
that is
And don't
that is
forget
amazing.
trash.
On second thought, I guess I could.
He's staying.
Let's
Meanwhile, he's showing up on Unsolved Mysteries, you know, the next week. If you know the whereabouts of Kevin.
We just talked about that, how, you know, your mom would come down. It's like, turn that video game off. You can't do this for a living. And literally, Captain N's mom just gave him crud
Yeah.
for playing his video game. Now, I guess he's stuck here now. I guess he lives there now with the princess and Simon and the weird bad guys.
Do you think it's like Tron, where, you know, a lot of time in the game world is just a little bit of time in the real world?
I think it has to be because, yeah, like you said, Kevin's going to be on Unsolved Mysteries and the police are going to be involved and it's going to be this whole thing. And not to mention the trauma the parents are going to go through because he was playing that dang Nintendo and then he disappeared. And boy, they're really going to hate video games after this. It's a whole thing.
That episode would have Robert Stack doing an update. Kevin has been discovered and has now been institutionalized. He thinks that he lives in a game world where Mega Man is green and King Hippo is purple.
And why is King Hippo in the show? We'll have to find out who wrote that episode and be like, why did you put King Hippo out of all the guys in Punch-Out? Why did you pick King Hippo?
I think that episode for me raises more questions than answers. Questions I had. I'm very curious to find out, you know, crack open the wiki page or the trivia page on IMDb and find out why were some of these decisions made. And sometimes it's just because, you know, they decided that's probably what the best call is and they didn't know the source material. But sometimes there's actual legitimate reasons for it. And that's the worst, when you hear the showrunners go, we didn't have a choice, like this is what we had to deal with, so what you gonna do?
It's almost like, yeah, why even license your properties out if you're gonna have these very strict rules? I don't know, but yeah, I agree with you. It's got to be something. It's got to be something like that. Why the characters look so off, and they don't even look cartoony off. I mean, Simon, like you said, you're like, yeah, Simon's in this. Remember? I'm like, yeah, I do. And then he was staring in front of, standing right in front of me. I'm like, who's that pilot? That's Simon. Oh,
Come on,
yeah.
Jay, don't you remember me?
Do you
What a
remember
horrible
this?
night to have a curse.
I was trying to figure out, like, who he reminded me of the whole episode. He reminds me of Captain Quasar. And if you guys listening don't know what Captain Quasar is, a very obscure 3/4 top-down view shooter that came out on the 3DO. Wow, that's a lot of obscurity.
That's obscure.
But look up that cover, and he looks exactly like Captain Quasar.
Captain Quasar, you got me curious. You are correct, sir. That's perfect.
Doesn't that look like Simon?
Absolutely. The chin, the bravado. Absolutely.
He's almost like a
Interesting.
character that would have been on it would have been in Toy Story or something. He reminds me of like a Disney character almost. But I don't know, man. What did you think? I thought it was pretty good for an intro episode. I was entertained. Had pretty good pacing.
Well, I got nostalgia for it. I grew up with this show, and so I liked it back then, and it's cool to see some of these familiar characters. It's just the funny thing is, when I first saw it back then, I had only known those characters for a few years, if that. You know, like I had never actually really played Mega Man, so I didn't really care. I had played, I never played the first Castlevania. I played the second one, which was crazy hard. And the graphics weren't that good, so I couldn't really tell if Simon was right or wrong anyway. But a lot of time has passed since I've seen this show, and I've played a lot of Mega Man and a lot of Castlevania with a lot better graphics and a lot of Punch-Out. So looking back on it now, I'm doing things that I didn't back then. I'm like, why is that wrong? And why is that? It's not necessarily wrong. It's just so different from what I'm used to for decades now.
It's when video game culture really started to come into the mainstream. I remember video games for a long, long time as a kid. It was kind of something that it was kind of nerdy and kind of geeky. And I don't mean the cool arcade scene.
Yeah.
I mean like actual home console stuff. And that show came out, and it was kind of like, yeah, you know, these properties are here to stay. This video game stuff is some big money. So it was really cool to see back then those characters come to life, even as, you know, silly as it might seem now. It was really special. It was a really, really cool time, man. I remember getting whatever game for my birthday. You know, you get a couple games all year, one for Christmas, one for your birthday if you're lucky. And no matter what the game was, you played it.
Yeah.
Because that's what you had. And there was very few video rental stores back then, at least around my area. So you really played it, good or bad, and it really taught you the value of things. It taught me the value of games too, because these carts were $80-$90
Oh yeah.
back then, right?
Insanely expensive.
I remember getting Super Mario Brothers 3 for Easter 1990, and Mom, for whatever reason, left the price tag on it, probably by accident. $99.99. That's what that game cost, from Toys R Us. And
Worth every penny.
a few years prior to, I remember getting Phantasy Star 2, and that game was $129 from Toys R Us. Because remember,
That's
back then
insane.
it was the more megs the game had, you know,
Oh, yeah.
the bigger it was, so it had to cost more, right? But
Yeah.
people complain about games costing a lot now. You ain't seen nothing. I feel like an old man now. Back in my day, Mario Brothers 3 was $100.
And then you've got that whole thing going on today where when you buy a game, you're not actually buying a full game because of DLC content. That's a big reason why I've just not delved into modern gaming. I mean, a big reason is because I'm not any good at them, or I can't handle the 3D graphics of them anymore. But also, I did that a few years ago where I bought a Star Wars game or some other game, and then I found out 6 months later it's more complete now. Like, that's fine. I've grown up on too many cartridges and being one and done to be doing that type of stuff.
I'm with you with the modern gaming. I agree with you 100% there. Another reason I'm not such a huge fan of modern gaming now is the time sink. And these are very cinematic experiences. And, you know, there's people put their heart and soul into creating these. I'm not knocking that. But I just personally don't have time to sit there and watch, you know, a 10-minute cutscene before we even get to start the game. You know, I just don't have that kind of time. And there was something about the NES. It was so charming. You know, you just threw it in and boom, you're going. Mario, like in 2 seconds, you're playing. I missed that. It was the simplicity of that stuff.
Yeah. Metal Gear Solid was the first time I had really seen that done, where it was a game that played like a movie. And it had really long cutscenes, but I went with it because but this is special. And then it just became the norm. And
It did, yeah.
the reason Metal Gear got away with it was because of the exceptional voice acting and the great writing and the great story. But then when a lot of games that don't have those, you know, that criteria do it, it's like not everyone can get away with it. And you know, I really do enjoy playing these old games. I've been doing the playthroughs on, you know, the arcade games, because those are quick playthroughs. It's like a 40-50 minute playthrough and you're done the whole game.
I saw you did the WWF, one of the arcade games, not too long ago. Oh man, I remember just pumping quarters into them, and the characters were so big, and every time you do a body slam, the whole ring shook. And I tell you, there was nothing like arcades back in the day. Playing those games, walking into at least the arcades around here, some of them were pretty seedy, but for the most part, it was just this wonderland. And do you remember the smell of old arcades? And I don't mean the cigarette smoke. I mean like just the smell of the electronics and the coins, and it's just, I want to go back.
And the sound. And the sound too.
Sounds, yeah.
It still exists. If you're ever in Kitchener, there's a Pinup Arcade on University, just down the road from Laurier and University of Waterloo. It's an arcade bar, and it is a like beautiful, nostalgic, retro arcade bar. It has so many of the 80s classics in it. They got Burger Time and Pac-Man. They had Tron a while back. Sometimes they have to send them out for repair and stuff, but they got the important classics, Donkey Kong Jr., a bunch of old pinball, NBA Jam, got a couple of the 90s stuff too. But first time I walked down in there, it was a time warp, because it's I'd forgotten the sound. I remember how cool arcades looked, but I'd forgotten all of the sounds. Just a symphony of 8-bit, 16-bit beeps and boops.
Next time we do one of our hangouts, you got to check out my arcade room. I don't think I showed you, but sometimes I'll turn on all the machines and I just crank it just to have that ambiance of the different noises, the Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, and Marvel and NBA Jam all at the same time. I love it. I just love the sound, and I miss the social aspect of gaming with somebody in person. Before 64, which was great on its own with 4 players, just going into an arcade with your buddy and just standing around the cabinet, you put your quarter down next because you're gonna take on the champion of Street Fighter who's been there for 10 minutes. I miss that stuff, man.
And Buddy would just disappear for a while. Where's Chris? He's over on Alien versus Predator. Does he need backup? I got my hands full right now on Turtles. It was like a war. You were going into like a war zone. Jimmy got picked up by his mom. Man down. He's got to go home for dinner.
Those old school Capcom and Konami side scrollers. Turtles, Simpsons, X-Men by Konami. It was pretty much the same game with just a different coat of paint, but oh my god, it was fun. They were so good.
So before we close out here, I want to ask you, what's your all-time favorite classic video game?
Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, for the NES. Zelda 2 is notoriously called the Black Sheep because it's very different. It's a side-scroller for all the action. But it's still to this day the only Zelda game that you can customize Link how you see fit, so you can level him up, putting points into his life or his attack power or his magic. I just always thought that was really cool, and I was really drawn to the challenge of that game. It's one of the most brutal video games out there. It's relentlessly difficult. Zelda 2, what's yours? Curious to know.
We were talking before we went on here about how it's okay to not be a completist. And that really paid off in the world of Zelda for me because I didn't have Zelda 1. I never played Zelda 1 ever. Zelda 2 was my first Zelda experience. Got to get that gold cartridge, right? And how about that gold cartridge? That's actually one of my favorite all-time classic games, Zelda 2 The Adventure Link. The side-scroller, but it's also a top-down map look, so if you're a huge fan of the first one, you get to scratch that itch a little bit walking around on the map world. Sound effects, the story, it was just incredible. It was unlike anything that came before it. You didn't get that story aspect of it, the drama. It was like Lord of the Rings before I knew what Lord of the Rings was.
The game still holds up today as one of the most challenging games, and it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't mess around. It literally starts you in the middle of this map screen. It doesn't tell you anything. You have no idea where to go, much like the first Zelda. You just got to kind of explore, which is really great. But you get men in this game. So you have, men, you can lose lives. And if you're at a palace, and you finally get to the boss, and you only have 1 life left, and you die, you have to do the whole thing again. Like, it's no joke. It's no joke.
Which is why we didn't just play the games, we mastered them. That's why so many of us mastered these games, because we had 1 game or 2 games. We didn't have, the wide range of games you can have now. And especially these days, you can go get a ROM for an old system and play it on emulator. There's no time, there's no opportunity to master anything anymore. Because it's like Netflix. What do you watch? Same thing goes for games. What do you play? I look at my emulator list sometime and I'm like, what do I play today?
Everyone had this if they had an NES. They had that black vinyl case that could hold 10 or 12 games. And there was something, I talk about this all the time, there was something so special about having only 10 games, only 10 CDs, only 10 VHS tapes, right? It kind of made it more special because you had to make the most of what you had. Or like you were saying, now when you watch Netflix, how many minutes do you spend? 10, 15 minutes just trying to decide what to watch because you have so much choice. But back then it was like you had 5 or 10 games, you had to make it last.
That's right. And also you could trade with your buddies too, or your friends could come over and bring their game. So there's a social aspect of it as well. But yeah, less was more. It made it more special, and I guess that's the whole thing. The abundance decreases specialness. So these days, with all of the variety we have, they say variety is the spice of life, but variety isn't necessarily the specialness of life.
I would totally agree with you, my friend.
And definitely another special thing that's on Amazon Prime. I'm going to give another shout out to Action Figure Adventure with yourself and your buddy Rob. It is on Prime right now. Definitely check that out. Season 2 is coming soon. More fun stuff.
It is. We shot the bulk of it this past summer. We went out east. We went all the way to, I think, Halifax.
Japan?
As far as no. That's season 3. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
But yeah, I've never been out east before, and that was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, we had a super blast shooting it, and we tried to go bigger and better with everything. So that's going to be coming holiday season 2022. And then on Jinx Esports coming in just a few weeks, actually, or I should say in November, we have the Jay and Rob Toy Show Season 2, which is our podcast that Rob and I do together. That's, again, who would have thought two guys talking like this would get a TV show, Like, the TV show is literally us talking about toys, so...
What area is that channel on?
It's under the Super Channel. So you have to subscribe to the Super Channel, and Jinx Esports is like a channel within that. It does it's a lot of like video game stuff, but they like our toy content, so they get first dibs at Action Figure Adventure and the Jay and Rob Toy Show before anyone else does. So unfortunately, it's only available to us Canadians for now, but we are trying to shop at other places as well.
Awesome. Well, it's been awesome chatting with you, Jay. We'll pick a better one next time, but we had to get this one out of the way, just for historical reference. I do believe this was the first. I guess there was Pac-Man before this. There was a Pac-Man animated series and a Q*bert too.
There was everything. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thankfully we skipped those.
You know what? I had such a blast doing this. I think this is a really great idea that you have going here, and it's a lot of fun to just sit back like we used to and just watch cartoons and see it through adult eyes, good or bad.
And maybe these commentaries make some of these a little more enjoyable to watch too. Maybe watching them with adult eyes 2 or 3 decades later, something's kind of lacking, and just having a little bit of discourse going along with them kind of helps the whole thing flow a little bit better.
With this particular instance, with this show, it's just really cool to see, to go back in time to that moment in video game history when TV shows like that started and video games were really picking up and becoming such a big part of pop culture.
All right, we're going to sign off here. Check out Jay's Instagram. Check out his YouTube channel for sure. Thank you so much again for letting me chat with you on your channel a couple weeks back about Transformers, the movie, 1986. It's celebrated its 35th anniversary, so that's up on there as well.
Always a pleasure, my friend, and thanks again for having me.
All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed listening, and until next time, Nerdmas Day.